Welcome to Lifting Leaders Podcast, where we are unleashing leader possibilities to make a better world. I'm Crystal Roberts, and together with Trisha Ryan, we're diving deeper into some of the complexities of the world's most critical challenges and exploring innovative ways of navigating through them.
Through interviews with experts and leaders just like you, we're exploring what it takes to thrive as a leader today and examining new ways of thinking about how to creatively lead into a more equitable, socially responsible, and sustainable future. And the future starts now. Hi, Crystal. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I got some weeds picked last week. Not a lot, but I got some picked. And that was a big deal for me. We're coming into summer, so yay.
That's very cool.
This week, in fact, I think, isn't it? Is it this week we're going?
It's the 21st.
Yeah, it is.
So
it's this week.
Friday, next Friday. Yeah, so it'll be, you're right. When we drop this, it'll be the week of. Yeah, so I'm loving the very long days of light.
Can you believe it? After 9 o'clock, I looked outside last night, and I think it was like 9:20, and it still was light enough to see everything.
Yeah.
So wild.
Yeah. While I love that date because of a special family thing on that day, it also, which seems surprising because we're just getting the warmer weather, but we'll start to actually have less light after the 21st. So
almost immediately. I think within a week we'll have actually minutes less.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So
I know, and we just we hang on to those moments when we get a longer day.
Yeah.
It's, I have to say something about that before we get started today. And I remember when I first moved here, I came from a lower elevation, in the country. And so I didn't really think about where the sun, how that sun tracks across the sky, depending on where you are in the country. When I was a kid, I never looked at that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I couldn't believe it in the summer. Often the midday sun, or what you would consider midday sun in California, that actually happens late morning. And here it happens like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it blew my mind that I would go out on my deck thinking, okay, it's afternoon, probably getting later in the afternoon. I can barbecue. I could do whatever I want, right? And it would be so hot out there sometimes with the sun tracking so slowly over the highest part of the sky. And I'd still have a couple of hours left to actually get a suntan. It just blew my mind.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd share that moment with everybody. A little bit of trivia.
Little trivia. So this week we're focusing on something that came out of the last session. Mm-hmm. Last week we focused on the mid-year check-in, and we were talking about that. And what we find sometimes with people, and I know I've experienced this myself, when we do a mid-year check-in, all of a sudden we realize how little we got done and how much more there is to do before the end of the year. And so we can really start to feel this sense of overwhelm. And also in the summer, sometimes our outside lives pick up as well. And we maybe have more chores, mowing the lawn and weeding, like as you were just talking about, you did your weeding. So we've got maybe a few more things going on, heading out on vacation,
right,
all that kind of stuff. So we can be feeling that overwhelm both at work, but at home as well. And so we thought it'd be fun to spend this time thinking about how can we address this sense of overwhelm that can really impact our lives.
Mm-hmm. It really can. And, I think we don't often think about it until it's upon us, until we are actually overwhelmed. Yeah. And it's like, I'm so overwhelmed. But we don't realize there are so many things we could do to mitigate that, right?
Yeah. There's so many things that will help us not only get rid of that feeling of overwhelm and hopefully have more of a sense of control and capacity to take care of the things we need to, but also we know that when we are in that state of mind, we get better business results and we can thrive personally.
Well, yeah. I mean, go back to being overwhelmed. There's an impact, and not just on us, ourselves, as we're being overwhelmed, but everybody around us too, because we just don't track. We're not as productive. We're not as present, not as engaged. There's so many things that we're not, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that I think often if I get overwhelmed, and it doesn't happen too often, but when it does happen, I usually don't even notice the symptoms until I'm in it. you know?
So when we think about what's contributing to those feelings of overwhelm, we were talking, of course, about the mid-year check-in, but there can be lots of other things, and we can be overwhelmed at different times in our life and in our year. And so when you think about that for you, Tricia, what do you think contributes to that sense of overwhelm?
I think for me, it's about the whole idea that I know what my goals are. I know what I've got set for my year, or what I'm going to be doing over a certain period of time. And every time someone asks me for help, or every time somebody asks me if I could just, do you have a minute? Can we just talk for a second? And I'm always going to give them that time, or I'm always going to try and jump in and help if I can, if I have the skills or something. And I don't think about the amount of time that it takes, or the amount of energy it takes to do that. I do it willingly and gladly and gratefully.
Yeah.
And after it's done, then I feel like I'm a little bit more pinched to get my own stuff done.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what happens, or that's how it looks for me. How about yourself?
Yeah. I was even thinking about that myself. It's that sometimes other people's priorities that get in the way of me getting my stuff done.
Yeah.
So thinking about even just how I start my day, I'm pretty good now about not starting my day with email, but actually saying, what is it that I'm going to be doing that's important today? What's the most important thing I need to get done? And we'll talk more about some techniques, but that's that sense of other people's priorities, setting sort of your day. What are you going to do this day? Because I spend the first 2 hours responding to everybody else's priorities.
Right.
And I sometimes don't even get to the things that I want to get to. Over time, that really can take a toll on people.
Well, it doesn't just take a toll on the person. It takes a toll on whatever you're doing, or the business, or the outcome, or whatever.
Results.
So it's like, so important that we keep in mind it's not just about me. I mean, it needs to be about me. I need to focus on my mental well-being and my state of how I feel first, before I start thinking about anything else. Because at the end of the day, business and a job, it's just a job.
Yeah.
And I had some very, very well-known person in the business I worked in one time tell me that. We had a frustrating meeting, and I left the meeting, and I was like fried. And he said, just keep in mind, it's just a job.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to do when you are someone who wants to get results, but you're responding to everybody else's priority.
Yeah.
That's your point.
Yeah. I think another thing in this day and age that really contributes to this sense of overwhelm is when we have so much change going on, both in our personal lives and in our business lives. So just trying to keep up with all of that change, and recognizing that transition is an important part of it. But when we have so many of those going on, that can really contribute to that sense of overwhelm.
Yeah, it does. And I think, when you think about it, and we've talked about transition over and over again, but one of the things about it is that, when you get up in the morning and changes starts happening, who knows, dead battery, now you got to change, how you get to work, or, something like that. Everything in life can seem like a change, or can seem like a one more thing that's ticking away at you, right? And making you feel like you're losing your daytime, and making sure that that you're going to have several of those going on during the day at the same time. But you're not going to be in the same space for each one of them. Some changes are easy to say, oh yeah, I'm on board with that. Doesn't matter. I don't care. I can move forward. Then there are some that you really have to mull over. It's like, what does it mean to me? Am I going to fit in? All that stuff. So those are the ones that take a little bit longer, and it's not something that you necessarily can get through in a day.
Yeah.
So, but pace yourself and give yourself some time. We'll talk about that, but giving yourself time to deal with those longer standing things can be a lot easier on the mental well-being, I think, over time, is if you're giving yourself some grace while you're going.
Yeah. I think another one that you and I were talking about is we're seeing, and I don't think this is ever going to slow down, but we see acquisitions, and we see restructures and downsizing and things like that, where people just have to accommodate a lot of times other people's, so they might get laid off and they have to take on those jobs, those responsibilities, or at least a portion of them. And so all of a sudden you had work that fit into a 40-hour day or 40-hour day.
I hope
a 40-hour week. But now you've got a job and a half.
Right.
And that, if you're taking all of that on, none of that work has gone away, that can feel overwhelming as well.
Well, and then add to that, I mean, if we're going to get complex about this, the next thing is if you're backfilling that position that has gone vacant, where the job duties have gone to you or part of them have, it may take time to backfill that job. It may take months, depending on the job, right? And once that person's on board, they have to be enculturated. They have to be brought on board. They have to learn their job. They have to go through their learning curve. And that is more stress because you're still carrying the weight of that job and your own. You're still dealing with their priorities and other people's priorities and your own. And, you know, you start seeing this pile up, and we are going through the months of the year. So come November or October, November, and you're still looking at some of the things that in your mid-year you said, oh, I've got to get to that. And you're going, what? That's when you start running, right, to try and get to the finish line by the end of the year and have all of your initiatives, you know, completed.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah, for sure. And we know that carrying all that stress all the time has implications. Yeah. A 2023 study from the American Psychological Association shares some information here, and they showed essentially that no matter what age category you're in, stress is increasing. They looked at the percentage of adults who rate their average stress between an 8 and a 10 on a typical day is around 30%. So 18 to 34
That's a lot.
Year olds, it's 34%, 35 to 44-year-olds, 31%, 45 to 64, 22%. The 65 plus, pretty low, 9%. I thought that was interesting. And they're showing that this is actually increasing. It hasn't decreased since COVID. So this is a study that was done after the big sort of crisis of COVID was over.
Why do you think it is that the people in the higher age bracket are not feeling the stresses of that as much?
Yeah, I'd only be able to guess on that. I don't know specifically, but I would think that they're not having to try and balance their work. Most of those people are retired by 65, maybe, and maybe they have more perspective in life. That's
what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know if I have the answer either, but I could guess that, you know, as we get more seasoned in our world and we've experienced more and more issues in life and have lived through it, we build that mental muscle for resilience, and it makes it a little easier to handle things as they hit you. You know?
Yeah.
And they don't have that at the younger levels. That's the time in your life when you're learning all that, right?
Yeah. They showed that ages 35 to 44 had the highest rate of increase in chronic illnesses.
Wow.
Adults aged 35 to 44 also experienced the highest increase in mental health diagnosis, up to 45% in 2023. And they say that though adults aged 18 to 34 still reported the highest rate of mental illness at 50% in 2023.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's staggering.
It's staggering. There is hope, though.
Yeah, there is.
And one of the things sometimes that happens when we feel overwhelmed is we try and just keep taking more and more and more on and get really focused on the work, and can we, just trying to churn it out. And it's certainly true in personal life as well. And I know a lot of times for me, that's where I go, is over-functioning. And that's not a good place to actually be living your life. It's not thriving for sure. And so instead of doing more, we're proposing you do less.
Yeah, I'm going to throw in just a little bit of what I've read in the past about how we in the United States do this. I mean, I'm saying our podcast episode today is really more about what people in the United States are going through, because I know that there are stresses out there in the world beyond our borders, but we have a work ethic here that is different than in most other countries, and we plow through, and we don't take enough time to self-reflect, I think. And so as a result, we let ourselves get overwhelmed. We let ourselves get, and there is choice. We just have to we have to take small, brave moves to do that.
Yeah.
To make our choices.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So
doing less. Huh. Good one, Crystal.
Sounds nice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we've got a number of things that we thought we would just kind of touch on. And obviously all of these, there's, hundreds of books that are written on it, articles. So if one of these piques your interest, you can, go and research it more and find out more. But in general, we sort of summarize it as really taking a look at right person, right things, right time. We call that the 3 R's. And so we're going to kind of unpack a few tools that you might be able to utilize to help that. So really asking yourself, am I the right person? Am I doing the right things? And is this the right time to be doing those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that comes to mind when you're talking about any of those, you're talking about there's always going to be a time element in there, right? Is it the right time for now? But also, how do I manage my time? Do I have what it takes to do this? And one of the practices or the techniques is just managing your time differently, or managing your priorities, basically. And I think that's really interesting, because I think before we did this today, I was telling you about something that we're employing at work that's actually amazing to me. And it's part of a system or a program, on my computer that automatically loads in. You have to fill out a little questionnaire in the beginning when you first see this app, but you fill it out and then it finds time on your calendar every day to give you focus time. So what it does then is it busies you out so nobody can bother you while you're taking that time. And I love that, because otherwise I would fill that time up with somebody else's priorities every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the first step, really, is finding what are my priorities. That takes a pause to be able to actually identify those things and be intentional about it. Mm-hmm. And then to actually put that as a priority for you and for your time. So I love that there's actually a technology solution that can help.
Decide what is most important.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to decide your priorities and you're having a hard time because those are given to you by somebody above you in title or something, go to them and say, here are the priorities that I have on my plate right now, based on the 55 things you've given me in the last 3 days, right? Which one is most important to you right now? Which one do you need to have soonest?
Yeah.
And that can help you decide what your priorities are too. I mean, if you're struggling with that, I've had a lot of discussions about that lately, because it seems that work is really busy and people are getting a lot of priorities and they do have a lot on their plates. And so sometimes it's hard to determine which one is most important, right?
They all seem to be important,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But we have to be courageous about our conversations with our leaders mm-hmm. and with our team, both up and down, to really be able to say, this is what's most important. And that's a really important job of a leader, to be able to help our people to make those decisions.
Yes.
Everything cannot be the most important thing.
No, and I think often, and I just know from my experience as a leader, I used to pass priorities off on my direct reports. And there were a few times where I just was so overwhelmed with the priorities I had that I was just, doling out, because I knew that they had the skills to do the job. So I would make sure I had everybody kind of balanced a little bit, right? But I'm telling you, I didn't often tell them which one I needed first. And so that's really important.
Yeah.
And I learned that one over time. You learn when you don't do it well, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting too that when you are clear about what's the most important thing and you work on that and get that done, the other stuff actually can get done as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of just fits in there, and you can get a lot more done.
It's amazing how many priorities we have that actually touch each other too. You know, like to your point, just one step in one priority might be the step you needed for the other one, or it might be the whole priority on the other one, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And something that can help us also with setting those priorities, because a lot of times when we feel the pressure of things that are coming at us, the priority goes to the things that are most urgent. And most important, most urgent, most important. And you think, oh, well, of course, why not? Well, the problem is then we never get to those things that actually save us time in the long run. And so a model that you can use, and this one's been around for a long time, but it still really works well. It's the Stephen Covey 4 quadrants model. So you can literally just Google that and you'll get all kinds of information about it. But the point is to actually take your tasks and to put them in this 4 quadrant, and then take a realistic look, like where am I spending my time? And it can be really illuminating.
Yeah, and I'm just going to like define the 4 quadrants real quick so everybody knows what we're talking about, because, and you've seen this in other models too. This is not unique, but it is well mapped out in the Covey model, which is, you know, you've got your lower left-hand quadrant is your not important but urgent, right? Not important but urgent. So how are you going to spend your time on any of that, right? Then you've got in the upper right hand or upper left hand quadrant, you've got important and urgent, right? Those are those things that you need right away, and they often get the first push, you know, or they're the ones that get highlighted a lot.
It's the typical putting out fires.
Yeah.
And a lot of us in leadership roles spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Yeah, putting out fires, crises.
And I'll tell you that all those other ones seem to sit on the back burner.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes get pushed right off the stove. That lower left-hand quadrant, I'm going to go ahead and go to that one first. And that one is not important and not urgent. And those are ones you typically don't get a lot of press time, although there are people who will go to those first because they seem easier to get done, and all that other stuff goes by the wayside, and they're missing something, right?
Yeah.
But then
and it can also be because they consider that waste. That is social media's sweet spot. Is people scrolling,
right?
Scrolling. You look up and it's like, oh my God, an hour has gone by,
right?
And so that robs us, especially sometimes at work, but most often in our personal lives. Yeah.
And then there's the upper right-hand quadrant, which is the big one. And that is, it's important, but it may not be so urgent, right? And those are the ones that often get pushed to the back burner. And they're the ones that you don't want to lose sight of, because often they're the ones that they're important. They're most aligned with our bigger goals, right?
Yeah. And
they're the ones that where your best creative moments are. You know, if you were to just spend the time with it, you'd find that you could come up with some amazing response and come out with a product or a service that is just going to wow everybody, right?
Yeah.
Those are the ones that really you need to put more attention to, but we often don't feel like we have that kind of time.
Yeah. It's preventive maintenance. It's also, hey, have you scheduled your preventive tests, like colonoscopies and things like that?
Yeah.
And
relationship building.
Relationship building, yes. Yeah.
Who wants to put that on the back burner? But do we often, when it comes to maintaining those relationships? Yeah, often, you know?
Yeah.
Learning and development, that kind of stuff. That helps you grow, helps you feel more confident. It can be very engaging, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, oh my goodness, recreation.
Yeah.
Or
taking that break to actually rejuvenate, re-energize, and be ready. Yeah.
How many people have you known who have put off their vacations forever and ever and ever because they didn't have time, right? Because they didn't have time, or I'm going to take that big vacation someday.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah. It's so true. And as on the personal side, somebody once told me, if you don't think you have time for a preventive test, wait till you get cancer.
Right. That's right.
And you'll find the time to actually have to deal with that. And that's going to take a lot more time.
It takes 15, 20 minutes for a test.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So, yeah, really thinking through how much time am I actually spending in each one of these quadrants? And then where can I shift my focus to be more to the non-urgent but important?
And it doesn't mean you can't touch the other stuff. But if you touch that one, if you touch those first, if you made those more of a priority, the other stuff will fall into place. You'll get it, And a lot of times you'll find that some of those other ones that seem like such, fire starters, they really weren't even that hard to do, but you spun on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets to our next one, which is the right person. So some of those emergencies and things like that, people can take care of either themselves if they have the right sort of authority to do it. It could be that you can push that down to another person, that they can actually take care of that. Maybe you're a leader of other managers or other leaders, and can they take on some of those fires for you?
Well, and I think about delegation and how often I hear people say, well, I'm just going to do it myself because it's easier than having to spend the time teaching somebody else how to do it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's selling your folks short, because people come to work for businesses or they come to volunteer in different organizations because they have a passion for something, right? Or because they want to serve or they want to help. And typically they don't go out and try to get one of those positions where they haven't got a skill in the world, right?
Yeah.
They might have them, but you may never have known that because nothing got delegated, or they never got tested, or they never got, challenged with something. And so it's pretty great eye opener to be able to delegate something. And, of course you're going to talk about it up front and make sure they understand and they know what they're supposed to do. But once they take it, finding out what they can do, you get a whole new education on the talent that's in your world. And it frees you up a little bit, and you can start trusting that, oh, you know what, I can actually work on something else right now. I don't have to watch over their shoulder the entire time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it oftentimes can be a development opportunity for people, and they love the fact that you trust them to do something, and it increases employee engagement as well.
Absolutely.
So delegation is an absolute win-win. And then, of course, thinking about, can these things be automated? Is there another way to do this? Can we improve the process? Maybe we can get rid of some of the smaller tasks. How do we align some of this delegation to people's strengths and their motivations? Yeah.
Yes.
And then I think the really hard question is, why do I want to keep this task? Why am I holding on to this?
Yes.
And really being honest about it. I mean, sometimes it's a time thing. It's a time crunch. Sometimes it gives you visibility. I was working with a leader, this has been quite a while in the past, coaching them, and they understood the importance of delegation. They had just recently been promoted into leading other leaders. And so they were really confused, like, what is my job now? And so by holding on to some of this work, it gave them value. And so.
But, that's such when you said that, something sparked in my head, and I was thinking about those people who do get promoted within, right? Who move up the ladder, and they now have other people that report to them, or maybe leaders who report to them. But they've been the practitioner all of that time. They were in that place before, and they were used to doing the job.
Yeah.
And when people go to new positions, they often either completely divest from everything that got them hired into that position to begin with, because they think they have to act differently, and that's not great. Or they don't want to let go of what they used to do because that's comfort. That's something they know, and they know they excel at that. So, they'll keep that because they don't have to worry so much about possibly not looking like they know what they're doing, right? And that's not good either. It's, it's moving and showing other people, giving them the opportunity to grow in what you already knew, and you know how to do it. So it doesn't mean they have to do it the same way, but you know what the outcome should be. It's an opportunity for you to give them growth opportunities or development where they need it, and recognition for what they've done. And you'll get tons of points for that, because that's engagement, that's trust, it's all sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
It's just tough because that's also a time waster when you don't do that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
One of the ways that we can kind of corral some of those priorities and make sure that we're doing them for the right reason, right? We're doing something that matters. It's not something that we are just keeping because it's nice to have. And that is to make a SMART goal out of every one of your priorities. If it's a priority, if it's truly a priority, then you should be able to measure it somehow. You should be able to say how it was, what made that important, and here is the outcome. And I think that could go, it could do volumes of good for you, not only with your upline, but also with your workforce and other people around you. And so it starts with, SMART is actually an acronym, and it starts with specific. So, when you're doing goal setting, you want to be as specific as possible. So when it's too broad, it's hard for you to figure out what you need to do, right? And if you're really specific, you can actually define your project, or you can define your priority. And so specific is really, what is it? What is it that I have to do? What is my goal? M in SMART is measurable, right? How are we going to measure? How are we going to know if we got there? If we say we want this to be, be on this rung of the ladder, how are we going to measure if we got to that rung of the ladder unless we put something to it? And that's often a number, or, something like, increase your monthly sales by 15%. Well, how are you going to know you got there? So you need to put measurements in place. Then there's A, which is achievable. And that one's a good question. To me, that's sort of are we going to do it or not? Can you do it or can't you, right? Are we going to be able to achieve this? Or is this going to be such a big lift that it is bigger than your goal? It needs to be a team goal, or it needs to be maybe something that we need to look at down the line, or we need to break this into pieces, right? And then, is it relevant? And that has to do with, does it have anything to do with what we're doing? Is it related to one of our bigger company objectives, or a goal, or our agendas going forward? It needs to be relevant. I'm not going to say that we have to make sure that the water cooler has water in it every day if we don't have anybody in the office, right? Something like that. I know that's totally off the mark, but it's something just to say, why are we doing it, right?
Yeah.
And then the last one is time bound. And if you have a goal and you don't have a time for it, it's not a project, or it's not a priority in terms of, something that has a beginning and an end. It now becomes your job role, because it's just ongoing if you don't have an end date. So it also may not get done, because if it doesn't have an end date, there's no pressure to get something completed. So it's good to have, again, an end date. And I know somebody who always does December 31st as the last day of the year. That is the day that all goals are due. And that's great. And I have noticed that person will push out to, in some cases, October, November, to start doing some of those goals that they could have done in March. Because why would I push now? I mean, it's not even due to the end of the year.
Yeah.
So be careful about that, because if it's a goal and it's in that quadrant we were talking about, in the Stephen Covey quadrant, it's possibly something you could get done a lot earlier, and that frees up your time too. If you're not doing on something that you haven't done yet, or you're not spending on everybody else's stuff and you're getting your stuff done early, then you have more time to do that other stuff. Or you'll have more time to take a vacation or take care of all the things that matter, right?
Yeah. So the last one is right time. So when we think about looking at the right time, there's many things that we can do to help us really manage our brain, essentially, and that can help us increase our productivity. And so one of the things that we can do is to limit distractions. So when we're even in a meeting, so we're trying to build those relationships, making sure that we don't have ding, ding, ding going off on our computer or our phone. Maybe sometimes I know I used to even post a sign on my door if I had somebody in my office that said, please don't disturb. So just where can we limit distractions? I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were saying your work area actually should be free of even books and, pictures and stuff like that. The stuff that's like right in your view, because unconsciously your brain is keying on those things. And so it is a distraction, even though you might not be as aware of it as you thought. So just where can you make some improvements there? Yeah. Set focus time. And you were just talking about that there's actually apps out there that can help you block your calendar. I think that's awesome. And accept that multitasking is actually a myth. You cannot do two things at once. And so your brain is focusing on one thing, then the other thing, back and forth, back and forth. Some people are really good at it. Their brains are fast at it. Other people are a little slower at it. But everybody always has to have a refocusing time. And so you really reduce your productivity by trying to multitask.
Yeah.
Thinking about, is there a way to match tasks to your energy cycle? So all of us have an energy cycle. Sometimes people are more productive in the morning, have a sluggish afternoon. Some people actually, their most productive time is later at night. So thinking about what are the tasks? Do they need a lot of focus and attention, or is this something that can be done maybe when you are a little tired or more tired? So thinking about, can I match my tasks with my energy level? And another one that we came up with was make sure that you're taking breaks. So there's some recent research that came out that showed that we can be a lot more productive if at least every 90 minutes we take a 5-minute break. That allows us to recover a little bit and keep our energy high throughout the whole day, rather than just reducing or having almost like a battery, right? So reducing the battery over the day.
I would love to see that kind of piloted with certain people. I mean, I would love to see people try it for a day, just a day, right? Yeah. Try the 90 minutes and then a 5-minute break, and then 90 minutes and a 5-minute break. And after a while, you have to take a lunch anyway. But I mean, it's like, try it and see how it works. And then when you're off work, try it still and see what happens. You might find that you're feeling a lot more focused during that 90-minute time because you've just had enough time. I know when I used to work pretty close to my computer screen or whatever, and my eye doctor used to say, every 20 minutes, look away from your screen and look at something really far away, and don't look at anything that's really close up for about like 3 or 4 minutes, and then go back to your screen, because just breaking up that visual focus was good for my eyes, but it also turned out to be better for my focus when I was looking at what I was trying to get done. Yeah. And so it was just a kind of my visual take a break, right? Yeah. It was great.
Yeah. I think the other thing I might add to this as well, we were trying to keep it to 5, is when we think about that feeling of overwhelm, a lot of times it's because we're either ruminating on something that happened before, or we're thinking about the future. And so if we can, it's that mindfulness piece about being really present with what's in front of us, that also helps us to reduce at least that feeling of overwhelm.
One of the things that I've kind of employed a lot more in the last maybe 6 to 8 months is meditation. And I will not say that I am an expert at meditation. I've been doing it off and on for years, but I am a busy-minded person a lot of the time, and so I find myself coming in and out of my meditation. So when I think I'm really focused, then something comes into my head and I get distracted. But I was reading just recently again, Positive Intelligence, and Shirzad Chamine talks about that, and that it's okay to get distracted when you're meditating. Don't worry about it. Just go back. Once you recognize you're doing it, then focus on something again and try again. And that's the only way you get good at meditation, is to keep refocusing. It's the act of not doing anything else but that, though. I mean, try to stay focused on one thing, or try to, wiggle your toes and with your eyes closed and your muscles all relaxed. But until you get to where you can do that, you're probably not meditating that much. You're still probably too distracted, like your past, your future, all of those things that keep you busy-minded. And I am getting way more focused on the present because of what I'm doing now. And I think that is helping a lot with everything else that I feel like I'm going through in life. It seems to be something I can manage. And I know a lot of people that do that all the time. They're just avid, meditators, if you will, and it's important for them. So it's just one technique, but it's something to focus on something other than words, screens, noise. Yeah.
So I hope that was helpful for anyone who's out there feeling a little bit overwhelmed, to really take a pause, reflect, and employ the 3 R's: right person, right things, right time.
I'm glad we did this right now. It's that time of year. It's always going to be that time of year, though, for this. Being overwhelmed is just never a good thing, right?
No. Yeah. Saps away at our happiness. Yeah. So try some things, experiment, find 1 or 2 things that maybe piqued your interest in this podcast, and give it a try. Yeah. Hopefully it'll help. So let's keep the conversation going. If you have questions or comments about the show, you can find us on all our social media channels at lifting_leaders. We have so many exceptional podcast episodes coming up, more with fantastic guests. So be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. If you know someone who would find this episode inspiring, share it with them, text them, email them, or take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram and tag us at lifting_leaders. If you'd like to know more about us, our guests, or the show, please go to our website at liftingleaderspodcast.com. You'll find our show notes there as well. If you're looking for help in developing your leaders, or would like a growth opportunity yourself through leader coaching, please contact us through our website at www.liftingleaderspodcast.com. Thank you to Ari Chance Roberts for his technical support of our show. Finally, please take 30 seconds and follow us. It helps you because you never miss an episode, and it helps us because you never miss an episode. To follow us, go to the Lifting Leaders Podcast Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen. Then just tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow. While you're there, if you'd be willing to give us a 5-star rating and review and share the episode with a friend, we'd be so grateful. Thank you, Trisha.
Thank you, Crystal. It was fun.
Many thanks to you, our listeners. We appreciate you. Find ways every day to lift each other up. Have a fantastic week.
Take care.